Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed are solely those of the individual speakers and should not be considered as those of the organizers, sponsors, affiliates, or partners. Content is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the 2025 Childfree Convention. I'm Cody Hetzel, and I'm honored to be your host this year. Whether you've been with us since the beginning or you're joining us for the first time, thank you for taking an interest in the child-free community. First, I want to take a moment and recognize the people who helped build the foundation for this event. Big thank you to Jared Hansen and Lenore Fay. The three of us started laying the groundwork for this way back in 2020, and I hope you're as proud of it as I am, and I hope to continue it forward and not embarrass us too much. Thanks to their work and every past volunteer, we're able to keep this conversation going and growing. Now, if you've attended previous years, you might have noticed something a little different. This year, it isn't a live-streamed event. Instead, the Childfree Convention is embracing the flexibility that pre-recorded content allows. That means you can watch on your own schedule, revisit what interests you, and there's not a 10 or 12 hour time difference from when we would be normally putting this out to when you can enjoy it at your leisure. When I put out the call for speakers earlier this year, honestly, I wasn't sure what would come back. And I gotta say, what I received back was thoughtful and, in some cases, incredibly personal. So the speakers this year are all past alumni and people who've been involved in the convention before. Some of them took this opportunity to just check in, let us know what they're up to right now, how things are going in their lives or at work. Others revisited the panels and topics that they were a part of in previous years, reflecting on what we talked about then. Have things changed at all coming forward? And some speakers got a chance to explore topics that may not have been able to be covered by the panel because it would have been too far off base. And so this gave them an opportunity to really dive in and talk about anything that's kind of on their mind. So yeah, exciting. So that being said, this year's Childfree Convention offers an authentic and unfiltered look at what life's like in the childfree community around the world. Speakers were given full freedom to share whatever is most meaningful to them. I didn't put out any restrictions, and I didn't give them any guardrails. So whether you're here for something familiar or something brand new, there's something here for you. Thank you to all the speakers who stepped up to share their stories, insights, and experiences. Your voices are what makes this event meaningful. And of course, a big thank you to our sponsors. Your support helps make this event possible and keeps it accessible to the child-free community at large. The Childfree Convention has always been freely accessible, and there are no plans to change that. The Childfree Convention has never been about having the same surface level takes on what's going on and around the child-free community. We always try to look for new topics, new speakers to bring in each year with the aim to move the conversation into a new and sometimes needed direction. So that being said, thanks for being here and welcome to the 2025 Childfree Convention.
Hi, this is Dan Alexander, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, Canada, and I was part of the Child-Free Guys Talk panel in 2021 and one of last year's panels, The Current State of Child-Free, and I've been involved in convention on a couple of other occasions in various capacities as well over the years and have enjoyed my experience. I'm no longer having a social media presence, so I don't get a lot of the news stories unless people send them to me, so it's nice that the conversations are being held, and not having social media was a choice, personal choice, something I haven't regretted. I've found it's enhanced my ability to be creative and focus more on other things. The one conversation I still think that needs to keep being held and had is the whole idea that elected officials refer to families as people who have children. That's something I still find is prominent and still happening on a regular basis. It's maddeningly annoying because you're a family, whether you're by yourself or just with someone else, you can still be considered a family. This idea of family being households with children is just simply not the case anymore. And governments still tend to use it as a dangle a carrot over people in order to get people to vote for them, regardless of political stripe. This is about the family, that's about the family. So those conversations still need to be had. I'm proud to have been and continue to occasionally be part of the conversations to broaden things and broaden the discussion. But I also feel at the same time I've said a lot of what I've felt like I've wanted to say, so I'm pursuing other creative pursuits with my writing, having a couple of other books out, looking at finishing another one hopefully by the end of this year and have it out. So I'm still happy to be part of the discussion, but I've reached a point where things are broadening so much that I may have said all that I wanted to say.
Hi everyone, I'm Verena Brunschweiger. Today is my 45th birthday and I'd like to tell you more about birth strike as one of the most powerful weapons against patriarchy and right-wing politics. Here goes. In the 1970s, it was already discussed whether one was doing patriarchy the greatest possible favor by having a child. And amazing authors such as Simone de Beauvoir and Shulamit Firestone agreed that this was undoubtedly the case. You can also just apply the basic principle of utilitarianism. You ask what is most useful to the largest possible number of people. This approach is much more popular in the Anglo-American world than here in Germany. And so it comes as no surprise that a politician there asked the question of the century, which would never have been conceivable here and is still unthinkable now. On the contrary, thanks to the shift to the right, it is drifting even further away. Is it okay to still have children? Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez asked as a young congresswoman in the US in 2019. In The Guardian, this was labeled a profound moral question for us all, an assessment that would never have been made in German-speaking countries. When I asked this question that very same year, a storm of indignation erupted. If Ocasio-Cortez were German, no one would have voted for her again, whereas she is becoming increasingly popular at home. Of course, there were and are quite a few Trump supporters there who want to stone a woman for such a statement, but as a woman with courage and intact moral compass, you don't let a few insults stop you, but instead convert their hatred into energy, which motivates you to keep going because you've hit a nerve, obviously. Given this situation, it is really shameful when German-speaking journalists write articles in which they coldly focus exclusively on themselves, whether it is right for them to become parents right now or not. Neither the effects on other people who already exist are relevant, nor does the state of the world play a role in the considerations of potential parents. And one naturally wonders what kind of people these are, who simply don't care at all that every new resource consumer here in our global north massively worsens the situation of the people in the global south, who have to bear the burden of climate change in the first place, or let's say climate catastrophe. That entire animal species are dying out because of us, that the new human being with a long life expectancy will experience 100% fights for water and food and even more wars and crises, etc. But they are probably falling for one of the numerous delusions that persist among parents. Your child could invent a cure for cancer. We're sorry, but according to current figures, the likelihood of your child becoming the next murderer, terrorist or rapist is unfortunately significantly higher. So it would at least be appropriate to think about the ecological, political and philosophical consequences that one's own reproduction has on other living beings. Nowhere is anti-feminism more blatantly displayed than in the discrimination against women with their children. And unfortunately, not only from the right-wing masculinist side, but also from permanently outraged mothers who are still not satisfied with the numerous benefits they receive from society, at least here in Germany. They are grateful that there were men who made themselves available as a sperm reservoir, as the great French author Virginie Despentes writes, for their desire to reproduce. Since this group can't be criticized, you tend to throw the one group under the bus, which is getting on your nerves most anyway. Women without children. Yes, those presumptuous chicks who imagine they can simply maintain their freedom and independence. They need to be taught a lesson. Advantages for parents. The easiest way to get them since the Middle Ages is to devalue and stigmatize the other group and to put a completely undeserved halo on yourself. Since patriarchy, right-wing parties and so on also support people in this delusion in many different ways, and unlike in progressive countries like South Korea, the majority are those who have children. This pathetic devaluation of those without kids is an unparalleled success story. This also leads to parents bluntly admitting what they are using their oh-so-beloved children for. They are supposed to take care of them when they are old, they are supposed to serve as pension payers and problem solvers, they are even supposed to advance the careers of the parents. There is a book that, in all seriousness, has a sticker on it with the slogan, "Career thanks to children." As is known from various forums online, the book actually does list supposed talents of parents, and we know from the author Caitlin Moran that she didn't learn anything during her motherhood that she couldn't have learned at least as well somewhere else, if you have to create a new person in order to grow personally. Even worse, however, is the tangible discrimination, such as discriminating against applicants without children. People with children then hire people who are also parents for this very reason. The latest research by Zach and Jennifer Neal, professors from Michigan State University, confirms this trend. Parents find other parents more likable, competent, trustworthy. Women without children in particular, surprise, are perceived as colder and treated with the usual anti-feminist insults from reactionary parents that could have escaped the likes of J.D. Vance. Because, as Alice Weidel and Shorter Meloni agree, a real woman wants and has children. Hearing such aggressive pronatalist propaganda from women is extremely saddening. That's why the two of them get along so well with Elon Musk, who even takes his ego extension, son, with him to official appointments, which people like Tilman Prüfer, himself a father and journalist at Zeit, notice negatively. It is almost always right-wing conservatives who want to push everyone else to reproduce in order to have more native kids, who can be used wonderfully to keep refugees out. They are also important as future soldiers and consumers. And what many naively don't see, Musk's group of children will be protected from the environmental catastrophe, while the others' kids will be allowed to breathe heavily polluted air and wage wars over water and other resources. So it's high time to finally turn the tables and criticize Musk, von der Leyen and other super-rich people with what feels like 20 children, instead of praising them. Politics must also change. There can really no longer be any question of freedom of choice. This is more reminiscent of cases in which girls and women are married and impregnated whether they want it or not. And always keep in mind what Professor Paul Dolan found out in England. Women around the world are criticized about twice as much as men for not having children. So, for all of you who want to fight patriarchy and right-wing parties, simply don't give birth, and you will save the earth.
Hi everyone, I'm Roberta, I'm 37 years old, so I'm Brazilian. I participated of the Childfree Convention in 2022. I've been in 2 panels. One was like being child-free in Central and South America, and the other one was defining family. It was a big challenge for me because English is not my native language. I met a lot of people in there from all over the world. It was a nice experience for me. And I still have friends and people that follows me on Instagram, so we use it to talk a little bit. And since then, I started a new path in my life. I started to go to the gym, I started Muay Thai, and I started to take care of my fitness life to become a better person. I'm doing a lot of stuff that I used to be afraid of. So I was afraid of heights, so now I'm climbing mountains. I used to be afraid of fighting. So I started Muay Thai and now I'm loving it. I think I'm trying to become a better person. So since then, I'm feeling more supported being a child free because I realized that there's a lot of people at my work and in my friends group that they are child free. So I think it's a tendency that the word will change. Actually, it's already changing right now. More we see, more we look to the families, they are different. So there are a lot of people divorced or living with a cat or a dog or alone. I think putting a label on it, like a perfect family, it's made of a mom, a dad, and a dog and 2 kids. It's not a standard anymore, you know. Like there's a lot of people, like I think more than the regular family nowadays. I think media and society still keeps with the idea that you need to get married and you need to have kids, but we see that it's not working anymore. Like a lot of things changed. Like we have internet, we have information, we have feminism. There's no way to become to what you used to. So I think things will change, like somehow, some way. People outside, child-free, I think that they need to, like I used to say at the convention, they should take care of their own lives. Because like it's a label, you know, like we know a lot of people, like gay people, non-monogamic, lesbians, I don't know what more, vegans, you know, they are just different than you. They just decided to do something that you don't. So they don't need to say anything, you know, they should take care of their own lives. And I think the stereotype that I hate most is saying like, oh, you don't know what love means because you don't have a child. Like, it's totally selfish, you know? How do you know if I know what love is? It's totally ridiculous, you know? Because I think you cannot measure what love is because you have another person. Actually, I think that we, as a child-free people, we care more about a child than some couples that I know, because they decide to have a kid because they are like, oh, okay, let's have a kid, because they want to save the marriage, or they want to, like, oh, I want to pick a name and, you know, like, make the bedroom. And we think a lot about the future and how this kid is gonna grow up, and if we are prepared enough to have a kid or to take care of another life, you know. So I think a lot about this. The world is changing. There is war, there is global warming, there is a lot of problems in here that you need to think a lot about putting another life in here. I think this stereotype of you don't know what love means, it doesn't make sense, you know? I think love is something that I don't know how you feel about love, and you don't know how I feel about love. So you cannot put in a box, like having a kid means something. You're gonna feel something that you never felt before. So it doesn't make sense for me. And what is gonna happen with the kids that they are already here? I know a lot of people that say like, oh, my child, it's my child, you know? Like, I'm gonna take care of this child because the other one is not mine. And I don't agree with that kind of way of thinking, you know? Like, we should care about all of them. I see a lot of couples that have kids that when they go to school and they have a friend in there, and it's like, oh, my friend have I don't know, a pen that is awesome and expensive and stuff, and then the father say like, okay, I'm gonna buy a better one for you because you are my child and you deserve better. Like, it's, you know, like it doesn't make sense. Like, it's like putting two kids to compete with themselves. And I don't know, like, I don't agree with that idea, like that my child is better than the other ones. So I think that everything is related to think about what are you doing, you know, like it's not just like, okay, let's have a kid. It's not about that. Like, I'm vegan. I know that there's nothing to do with this, but it's not, it's a decision, you know, because I thought too much about it. I thought too much about what I believe and what I really do with my foods and the way I eat and this kind of thing. So I think it should be the same about having a kid, you know, like you need to think and not just having it and putting them in a world that it's falling down. I think it's everything that I need to say. I think it's over, and it's really hard to make a video here. I gotta say, like, it's my, I don't know, like I did it 30 times because it's really hard to doing it. And so if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, it's robs.ch. So I'm there, and if you guys have something to talk about, child-free or trips or climbing mountains or I don't know, like hiking and sports, I'm there. So you can add me and we can talk through there. And that's it. I guess so. Thanks for everything. And I hope you guys enjoy it. So that's it. Bye-bye.
Hi everyone, my name is Daphny Cormero and I'm from the Philippines. So I was part of Childfree Convention in the years 2022 and 2023, and now we're back. So it's always an honor to be part of a space where people come together to talk honestly about what it means to be child-free and to live fully and freely on our own terms. So after joining the convention, something shifted, which I am so proud of. People around me started asking questions, not to challenge, but to understand. It felt like they were seeing me, maybe for the first time, not as someone going against the grain, but as someone choosing a life that made sense to her. So way back in college, I met women who lived differently, professors who didn't have children, didn't have partners, and were thriving. They weren't waiting for something to make them whole because they already were. And that opened my eyes. I began to read more, listen more, and question more. So, which I concluded that womanhood isn't defined by motherhood. That we are allowed to make choices that reflect who we really are, not who we're expected to be. And perhaps the most freeing realization of all, there is no single version of normal. There's only what's true for you and what's true for me. Choosing to live child-free has brought me closer to the life I want to live. It gave me clarity about what I value. It gave me time, energy, and space to grow, not just in my career, but in how I connect with people and show up for my community. I get to say yes to things that matter deeply to me, to advocacy, service, rest, to discovering who I am outside of what's expected. And I want to say this lovingly and clearly. Being child-free doesn't mean being incomplete. It doesn't mean something's missing. It means we are choosing with intention what our lives will look like. It means we trust ourselves. We are not selfish, we're not broken. We're just walking a different path, one filled with meaning, care, and purpose in ways that are beautifully our own. And every time I hear someone say, I didn't know this was an option, I am reminded why this matters, why these conversations matter, and why I'm so hopeful for what's next, not just for me, but for all of us. So today, I continue my advocacy through Masulog organization, where we work to empower menstruators and talk openly about things that are too often kept silent. I also serve with the Roberta Club of Catalogan, where we lead projects grounded in service and solidarity. So being child-free has given me the gift of presence. I can show up whole, focused, joyful, because I've chosen a life that reflects what I care about. And I am grateful. This choice gave me room to breathe, to grow, and to live with purpose. So thank you, Childfree Convention, for creating a space where we are seen and supported. Here's to choosing what's true for us. Here's to living with intention. And here's to the beautiful freedom of becoming fully ourselves.
Hey there, my name is Rhonny Dam, and my involvement with the Childfree Convention was in 2021 with a presentation on climate change and how child-free people fit into that. Obviously, we help by not contributing to overpopulation. Our passions and our legacies can be fighting for nature, should we choose to do that. In the last few years since that convention, my focus has been overshoot. Every year there is a day called Earth Overshoot Day, and this year, 2025, it falls on July 24th, which is pretty early in the year because it is the date when humanity will have used up all of nature's entire annual budget of ecological resources and services. Anything beyond that is borrowed from next year. This is obviously unsustainable. We would need 1.8 Earths to sustain our chosen lifestyles. Bringing more people into the world, which we as child-free do not do, or raising people out of poverty, which is something we should be aiming to do, would only make those numbers worse. What can we do as child-free people? We can learn. We can educate, we can lead by example. We can show that you don't have to have children to give a crap about nature. We can care. If you'd like to learn more, please visit overshoot.footprintnetwork.org, or to learn more about climate change at great resources climatereality.org. You can also reach out to me, Rhonny Dam, on Facebook, in our group Persist. And I'm also on Signal, on WhatsApp, Messenger, whatever. Email me. Find me. Let's chat. I'd love to hear your thoughts about overshoot and climate change. And if you'd like to do something about it, I'd love to talk to you about that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being child-free. Thank you for being you. And thank you for watching. Persist.
Hey everyone, it's Marcia Drut-Davis, your child-free guru. I have been walking the child-free lifestyle for 51 years, and at 82, not one regret. That's the question I have been asked for, I think, over and over, from being interviewed, from people. They all want to know, well, what happens when you're old? Will you be lonely? Will you have regrets? No, not one. So I've been on panels for many, many times, and each time I see and hear the same thing. I'm tired of being selfish. Why is it that we're considered to be such evil people on this planet? It doesn't seem to change even after 51 years, although it's more and more acceptable. And we're hearing more and more parents saying, this is not an easy lifestyle. We know this. Many of us have researched this. That's why we chose not to have children. And if you have chosen not to have children because you can't, there's a difference between childless and child-free. Latch on to the free and start thinking about the possibilities, although I am not discounting how much you've hurt. And read books about pronatalism to help you understand why some of this may be from brainwashing from the time you had your first doll. I think one of the things that also bothers me is how many people think that we all hate children. Well, first of all, if any of you don't like children, don't have them. It's perfectly fine, and you don't have to like children as long as you don't harm them. Many of us are devoted teachers, psychologists. Many kids need psychologists. Volunteers, hospice people, doctors, dentists, waitresses, people who work with children and accept them and love them to the best of their ability. We're not child haters, although I do have a neighbor who screams out, "Child hater," whenever she can see me. Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think what we have to do is accept the fact that we are still considered different. But sometimes being different is a joy. We don't fit into this little box where we're expected to do something. We stand for what we think is important to us in our lifestyle. I have done that for years. I have faced a lot of wrath. I lost my job in 1974 after being on 60 Minutes and saying I don't want to have children. And Mike Wallace ended the show with, well, pardon our perversion for airing this on Mother's Day. Good night, everyone. So I was deemed perverse, faced death threats, lost my job. It's all in my first book, which I'm sure you'll get at the end of this as to what you can read to learn more about me. But I think this whole concept that we are child haters is silly, and it's ignorant, and it reeks from brainwashing called pronatalism. And if you have not understood the word pronatalism, I urge you to read The Baby Matrix by Laura Carroll. Your eyes will open every day and get wider every day. I think one of the things that we also should do is to look at how much pronatalism still affects us. Look at the ads. You have now a homework assignment from your teacher. See how many depict any kind of goods or services with children, or the word family being represented by mom, dad, little boy, little girl, both looking adorable. Never teenagers driving you nuts, or babies. I've always said that babies are the shortest part of the life, caring for a human for the rest of their life. It goes like this, and suddenly they're teenagers. You don't usually see that, although I now have seen ads. I think it is, what's the one with driving the car and the dogs are driving the car? I love it. There's not one kid in it except the puppy. There are changes, very small, 51 years, and I expect it'll be another 51 years if this planet survives, that we'll be fighting the tide that says there's something wrong with you. You're selfish. Something went wrong in your background. I bet you were raised in a terrible manner. You must have had the most deplorable parents. Well, some of you have, and you've made a wise choice not to do that. Or some of you feel that your genetic background is such that you don't want to carry on. That's not selfish. That's self-care. That's caring about you, your future, and if you were to choose that child, what if they carried the same epigenetic possibilities? So I applaud you, those of you who are saying, no, it's not for me because I don't think my family has enough background where I can continue this. Now, as far as legacy, oh God, I just love that. Who cares about a freaking legacy? I mean, maybe narcissists, but for me, my legacy is you. You who will continue this fight. You who will have read my book and shared it with another person. You who has had my life in your life, either as a friend or a follower or a family member, although two don't speak to me. But a legacy, to me, is what you do on this planet right now, or not. You can decide that you don't want to do anything. You just want to live this life and enjoy this life to the best of your ability. And the other thing I can't stand is, oh, you must have so much money. Well, I don't. I spent 15 years, being blacklisted from teaching with a pension that's pitiful. And many of you struggle. Many of you struggle with money. Yes, I do have a little extra money to give myself a little bit of Botox when I need it so that I feel as young as I feel, but not the way I look. So that bothers me too. All this, oh, you all have so much money. The truth is, and here's the truth, I am 82 years old. Looking back, It is the best choice I ever made. Why? Because now I see the disappointments, the heartache of so many friends and family who have children and are suffering because of those disappointments not met. Terrible, emotional, draining, and all I could do is be there with a soft place for them to fall. And the last thing that I want to say about my choice in being child-free by choice is I do believe that we all have the right to a choice. I do believe that one of the biggest issues we women have right now is not being able to have an abortion should we desire that. That should be fought for with everything that you can, if that's your belief. How can I end this? I want to end this on a positive way. I think the most positive way is to tell you that I am so proud and delighted to still be on this journey with you. I'm here for you. I care about you. I repeat, you are my legacy. And I want you to feel the pride, the same pride that parents seem to tout all the time. Don't be so defensive. Oh my God, parents love that. Just say to them if you get the, oh, but, oh, I'm happy you're happy. I'm happy too. One more important thing. Please make friends that are real and authentic. Don't keep them to your age. You need people who are younger and older, because as we age, the older die. Who is it that's left? The younger. The people that love you and care for you and you care for them and make you feel young. Don't forget to make authentic friends. And what do I mean by that? You got to be a friend to get a friend. Call them. Tell them you're missing them. Tell them you're thinking about them. Remember their birthday. Call them for no reason. Make sure that your heart connections are felt so real that they want to be there for you. And I think that's a good way to end. I love you all. Happy International Child-Free Day. And thank you to this panel discussion and this ability for me to reach more hearts.
Hi, Childfree Convention. My name is Myrto, and 2 years ago I got to participate in 2 panels of the Childfree Convention, Childfree Through the Ages and Childfree in the Media. The discussions that we had back then have stayed with me to this day because, first and foremost, I get to see the value of this community and the way that we enrich each other's lives every single day. But also because through humor, reflection, and personal experiences, we got to add to a much bigger, very necessary conversation about the very existence and representation of our child-free community in the media and all aspects of daily life. Social media, news media, and mainstream media of all kinds continue to play a major role in the way society understands and perceives child-free people. We have some amazing content creators on social media right now making content and raising awareness, and while that comes with a lot of pushback, I think it's imperative right now that we persist. Of course, as child-free people, we've heard it all. You'll be lonely, you're gonna die alone, you're never gonna know true love. What about your legacy? Who's gonna take care of you when you're old? I don't think I need to go on. But I know that it's not having kids when you don't want to that gives you fulfillment, a legacy, or make sure you have companionship in your old age. I believe that it's the community that you build, the friendships that you make and keep, the experiences that you acquire, and the mark you personally leave in the world that makes that happen. As for me, I choose to focus on being a good person, a good friend, a good partner, being passionate about the things I care about, traveling the world, and truly living my life for me and not for society's expectations. Enjoy the Childfree Convention this year, and see you around.
Hello, thank you again for the opportunity to speak with attendees of the Childfree Convention. My name's Kelley and my pronouns are she, her. I've been with my partner for over 30 years now, and for me, it wasn't a single decision to be child-free. It happened several points in my life and for many reasons. And my partner supported me every time, and it offered us many career and lifestyle opportunities for which I'm grateful. One of the reasons I chose to be child-free was our environment. I spent over 15 years working in waste, forestry, and conservation before getting a master's in public health. I'm a campaigner with the Center for Biological Diversity, working to address the connections between reproductive health, gender equity, endless growth, inequitable consumption, and the climate and extinction crises. The center is a national nonprofit conservation organization that works through a combination of science, the law, activism, and creative media to protect wildlife and the wild places they need to thrive. Today, I'd like to talk about pronatalism and the current rhetoric surrounding it. So pronatalism is the idea of actively promoting the birth of children, often through government initiatives or societal attitudes. These government initiatives can be things like cash incentives or baby bonuses that parents are paid upon the birth of a child. Or they can be harmful policies that limit reproductive health care, making it harder for people to choose if or when to have children. And losing access to contraception, abortion, and other reproductive health care is a scary thought. The systems and people in power that created these threats to our reproductive health rights and justice are the same ones exploiting the planet, undermining our environmental protections, and driving the extinction crises. My friends and family's children are growing up in a world dominated by capitalism, racism, misogyny, and climate chaos, and I worry about what's ahead for them. J.D. Vance has made several public statements implying that child-free Americans do not contribute to society or have a sufficient stake in the future of our country. This is false and shameful. Instead of blaming child-free people for this country's declining birth rate, we need to provide better social safety net services that support multi-generational families like universal health care, paid parental leave, child care stipends, and elder care. We need to care for people who are already here and give every child the best chance to grow up healthy, compassionate, and educated instead of cutting social services that help the most vulnerable among us. Other pronatalists, like Elon Musk, believe the declining birth rate brings labor shortages and economic stagnation. He sees kids as only future workers and consumers, which make billionaires like him even richer. Instead of blaming people for choosing smaller families, we need to have a sensible immigration policy and alternative economic models that don't rely on endless growth. Those of us who are child-free know how much we contribute to our communities and care about the future. We have such an important role in this moment to push back against the harmful rhetoric and fight for our democracy so that it can be enjoyed by children for centuries to come.
Hey y'all, I'm Maggie Dickens. I'm a licensed therapist and a coach who works with child-free people all over the world. I was part of the panel back in 2023 when we were doing this live and talking a lot about child-free communities. In fact, that used to be my Instagram handle. And these online spaces where we had this beautiful moment in time where we were finding our people. It's been a couple of years, and in the interim, the conversation has only gotten a little more layered, in my opinion. This is not just because our communities are evolving, which they are, which is amazing and awesome, but because the world around us feels, shall I say, heavier, more complicated. Something that I've noticed is that the child-free spaces online have followed the same pattern that we see in so many movements and moments of collaboration and connection. At first, it feels big, and there's this big feeling of, oh my gosh, I have finally found my people. And then over time, we're breaking off into smaller groups because we're all craving something a little bit more specific and a little bit more aligned, a little bit more us. And I think this is beautiful. It just shows that in a creation of a massive child-free community that we started building years and years ago, in creating these smaller places, what people have really wanted is to feel even more connected and find a place that supports their whole self. And that really helps with reducing that pressure from the world from the outside, especially in the political climate within the United States and abroad, because it's quite brutal, if you ask me. Pronatalist messaging is louder than ever. And there's this weird romanticizing of trad wife culture that's happening, and it feels like a giant step backwards for so many of us who've chosen a different path. It's no wonder that in these child-free spaces, we're not only looking for someone who's identifying as child-free as well, but someone who gets us and sees us and wants to be a part of our life as who we are as a human. So as I'm talking, I'm thinking about the question that a lot of people ask, which is, how has being child-free shaped my career and my life? And it really has shaped everything and every way that I show up in my work. And I think it's because I show up in my work as a full human. And being child-free is part of that. It's not all of it, but it's part of it. Being child-free and owning that decision and knowing how important it is in my life has given me a kind of clarity about the life that I want to build. And I've talked about this a lot. I am someone who has known I've been child-free forever. And I started building my own personal community back in 2012 when there weren't these online spaces. There wasn't this global conversation. It was simply me looking around and saying, I'm lonely and I want to connect with people who get it and who I don't have to explain myself and that I don't feel like the odd one out. And so in having that clarity of who I was, at least in that part, I was in my early 20s. I was also very, very lost in a lot of things. But in building this community that I have today, I was building this life that was not just a freedom from parenting, but it was a freedom to build the career and the relationships and the life and the woman that I wanted to be on my own terms. And that's where it's led me to being a therapist that is child-free affirming, that is showing up and saying, hey, you've got a space here, recognizing that simply being child-free doesn't erase all of your concerns and difficulties and challenges in life. However, it is an integral part of how you navigate through those. And we're still invisible in so many mental health conversations. We're treated as an afterthought or worse, kind of like a phase to fix. And because I embody and embrace this experience of living your life as a full human, I get to sit across from these brilliant and thoughtful people. And I get to say that you're not broken. You're not missing anything. You're allowed to want what you want. And that feels like a sacred privilege. People who are outside of the child-free space don't understand about the work that I do or the need for child-free communities or the need for conversations about being child-free. Our lives are not empty. We're not waiting for anything to start. We're not cold. A lot of people like to use the word selfish. And honestly, I would say, of course, we are selfish because we're human and all humans are selfish. We are putting ourselves in the center of our lives and we are saying, how do I want my life to look? What's really interesting is most of the child-free people that I know and that I work with care so much about the world. There is so much empathy that is pouring out of my clients and myself and people that I meet in the child-free community that honestly, at this point in the world that we're in, we're kind of exhausted from carrying it all, of worrying about our own bodily autonomy at the same time that we're worrying about the education system for children that aren't even ours. And I wish that people understood that choosing not to have kids doesn't mean choosing not to care. It's often the opposite. It's often that we're choosing not to have kids because of how much we care about ourselves and how much we care about the world around us, the earth, and the future generations. That makes me think about that term, that word, that big ominous word of a legacy. And what the heck does that mean to me, especially as a mental health therapist and anxiety coach? I think this concept that legacy equals kids is completely flawed, and it is coming from a very small-minded place. And I said what I said. When we think of all we are and all we have to give is children to the world, then what we're forgetting is all of the hundreds of different ways that we can all contribute to the world. I advocate for animal rights and better laws and policies and experiences for the people who are on this earth now and will be on this earth later, not simply just adding bodies to the planet. Legacy is about the way that you lived, the way that you are approaching your life. I'm not going to spend my whole life worried about what people think about me after I'm gone. And instead, I'm going to live my life knowing that while I'm here, I'm doing the best that I can for myself, the people around me, and the earth that I'm on. So sometimes when I'm on a roll and I'm talking about legacy and I'm talking about all the things that I'm doing for myself, other humans on the planet and the planet itself, the conversation typically just leads straight into policies and societal changes that I think would better support child-free people. And I think this is a really complicated and complex question because I think a lot of the policies and societal changes that need to be made are not only supporting child-free people. So when I talk about needing healthcare systems to make sure that we have appropriate healthcare for women at all stages of their life and all stages of their family planning, whether they want to have kids now or later or never, whether or not they're going through a difficult pregnancy or infertility or any of these things, we need to have healthcare systems. That supports child-free people, but that also supports the world that we're in. We also need healthcare systems and societal systems that don't assume that children are simply a retirement plan. And instead, we have social systems that are helping us in our older age so that we are not necessarily having this conversation of who's going to take care of you when you're older. Well, hopefully we have economies that help younger people build wealth that help support them when they're older, and that we have systems in place that are supporting our older generations and not forgetting them the way that they are right now. And of course, and I alluded to this a minute ago, we need reproductive rights that aren't treated like political footballs. The truth is, supporting child-free people isn't just about us. It's about creating a society where everyone, parents or not, can thrive. And this is why I say that some of the most compassionate, giving, legacy-focused people that I know are child-free, because the choices that we want to make for ourselves are also choices that we want for other people. And so these days, when people ask me what's next with Unapologetically Child-Free, well, my work is about helping child-free people stop over-functioning and start building lives that actually feel like theirs. And I support clients who are navigating relationships and emotional burnout and this deep sense of, is it okay to want something different? And if you're sitting there thinking that's me, I want you to know that you're not alone. And you don't have to earn the right to care for yourself, and you don't have to figure it out on your own. So if you want to stay connected, you can find me on Instagram at Maggie Gets Real, because it's more than community. It's more than being unapologetic. It's about being your real self. You can also find ways to work with me at catharticcounseling.com. So thanks for letting me share this space with you. And I really want you to know that this has been an honor every time I get to talk at the convention and talk with each and every one of you, either online or at some of my in-person events. So until next time, ciao, ciao.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Erickson, and I'm the founder of New Legacy Institute. I'm grateful to be here today, and I really want to thank Childfree Media and Cody for all of the work that has been done over these years and continues. It is such an important space that we have had with the convention to create new conversations and to really listen to one another. So I'm again grateful to be here. Thank you. I am going to take this opportunity just to quickly reflect on a few things and to share my perspective of where I think we are as a demographic and where we can go in terms of thinking about forward movement and action. I have been part of the panels where we looked at our personal identification as child-free, childless by circumstance, and everything in between. And I, again, just really want to emphasize that this is a continuum. It's not a goalpost with two identities. I think we go through chapters in our lives, learning, unlearning, around pronatalism, around pressures, around acceptance, around grief, around celebrating our choices. And all of that is contained in that. And when we choose to move forward in very divided ways, this is really speaking to what is happening a lot, for example, in the US, particularly after the election last year. I think that a lot of articles that came out were focused on the percentages of who's child-free, who's childless by circumstance, and who is the stronger voting group of that, who can become a voter bloc, a viable voter bloc. And this is just a US example, but I think we have this conversation universally, and it has been something that I've addressed for several years. It's beautiful that we all have different ways of identifying our pathways to not having children. And when it comes to policy and making change and taking action to create that change, while we honor everyone's story and experience, we really need to find a way as a demographic to come together, because then our numbers matter. And who we are and how we got here is not what policy looks at. It's not what policymakers consider. They look at numbers. And that doesn't mean that we're reduced to a number. I don't mean to infer that. I'm saying that the more that we can do collectively, the more powerful it can be. And there's a space where we need to take a moment to not only learn more about one another and to be in acceptance of our different circumstances and choices, but to suspend those identities for the greater good, so to speak. I think we have a real opportunity as a population that is growing, a demographic that has always existed and is growing. And I think we have something to not only contribute, but others can learn from, because we come from a very specific perspective that living outside of what is considered the norm and the status quo allows for different perspective. And while we can focus on the discrimination and the lack of equity and equality, which is very key to what I'm going to say about policy, it's also important that socially we recognize that we have a different perspective that is very powerful to contribute. So if we continue to be divided based on the ways we identify our pathways to not having children, that works in the favor of what is against us, so to speak. Last year, our demographic received a lot of, not a lot, but new visibility, let me say, based on J.D. Vance's comments, he is now Vice President of the U.S., and other states and countries, that are very much against who we are, regardless of how we chose or didn't choose to not have children. And I think that this is a really vital time for us to focus on who we are as a collective. It doesn't mean sameness. It means moving toward something that benefits all of us. And yes, we have different pathways. It's not erasing that, and it's not denying those identities or disrespecting them or not honoring them. It's taking a moment to look at where we can gain together. For example, during the US election and many articles that were written and even voting groups and calls that happened, there was a real tendency to separate who is child-free and who is not. And terms were misused, like childless cat ladies, etc. And we saw people glom onto that who, A, have children or maybe have cats. We saw politicians not correct those terms, not even being aware of what that meant, or hold steadfast to the parent and family narratives in politically, at least in the United States. And that was an opportunity for us to come together. It was a missed opportunity in that there was a scramble to assess who was harmed more. Did J.D. Vance really mean child-free people? And that's who was being targeted, yet the word childless was being used, misused, etc. The fact is, we all had an experience of that, regardless of how we identify. We all had an experience of that. And there is an opportunity for us to collectively look at the good that we are contributing in the world. Our carbon numbers, for example, are the same. Our negative carbon numbers are as valuable whether we're child-free or childless by choice, or child-free or in between, however you use the terminology and whatever your experience was. If we are put in a position such as countries, not only the pressure in the US, but countries that are really moving to outlaw our existence, basically, how do we prove that we don't have children based on choice or circumstance? Is there space for that? Are they going to care? Are they going to listen? Probably not. So this is not minimizing any individual's experience. It's about how do we come together to confront the things that have been happening and not just allow them to be as it is, or to continue to discriminate or exacerbate, extend the privileges that parents have, and these false privileges and classifications of people based on relationship experiences and procreative experiences, reproductive experiences. Why are we allowing that class system? Class systems, economically and otherwise, are at the root of division. It is intentional, it's systemic, and it is what is dividing us. So if we repeat this as a demographic, who are we? Who are we? And so my message today is to just think about these things. Let us know what you think. And if you want to support the Institute by becoming a member and being part of our dialogues, join us. We want to hear what you have to say, and we want you to be a direct part of influencing our policy responses and moving toward what we want. I think it's naturally a go-to for us to repeat what is not working on social media and to be seen as doing the right thing or endorsing the right thing by repeating what is wrong and by blaming. What if instead we move toward what we want and we put the majority of our energy toward that, rather than the triaging of moving and working with our heads against a wall to people who don't care and don't want to listen and are deeply pro-natalist, regardless of the treatment of children, of women, of any living member of society, at all costs for economic gain. Let's talk about these things. Let's come together. And it has always been the time to do that. But if not now, when? So really, this is an invitation from me and on behalf of the Institute. Let's talk about things and let's create the space to take action, not just react or point out what's wrong. Let's put most of our energy toward what we want to change and take action toward doing so. Thank you so much I celebrate you as a part of this collective demographic, which I love. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your input, for your questions, and let's talk about it, okay? Thank you so much. And thanks again to Cody and Childfree Media and the convention for doing this very important work. Thanks again, everyone, and take good care. Bye-bye.
Hi everyone, my name is Krystal. I chose to be child-free about 11 years ago. Since then, I have traveled a lot and discovered a lot of interests that I enjoy, that I'm grateful that I can do on my own. I've been single for a few years, and I have attempted to date people with children, and it has further solidified for me my decision that I made 11 years ago. There hasn't been 1 year that has gone by that I've regretted that decision, if that's any help to anyone who's newly decided this is a path for them. Advice I'd like to give to someone who's newly made this decision is that, at least for me, the past 11 years, that decision has ebbed and flowed when I've met somebody. And I have questioned whether or not I did want children with that person. The answer has always come to no. But I do think it's better to not be hard on yourself and allow yourself those feelings, because you'll probably have them for the rest of your life. Just as I imagine people who have children sometimes regret. In regard to being child-free and having an autoimmune, I'm extremely grateful that I have the opportunity in my life to be able to focus on my health and my interests and really be in the moment. I don't know who I would have been as a parent with an autoimmune. I'm just grateful that I don't have to find out. I live with MS. I was diagnosed 10 years ago, so a year after my decision to not have children. And I think with any major diagnosis, it solidifies for you who you are, who you want to be, what you want in life. And I remember being in the neurologist's office thinking, thank God I didn't have children. So if anyone's living with an autoimmune, MS in particular, you know that there are times where you are extremely tired. That is my biggest symptom. And I am grateful that I am able to put on my jazz and lay in bed when I need to.
Hello, my name is Helene Gustavsson and I live in Sweden. I was a participant of the Childfree Convention for the last 2 years, and last year I had a panel all of my own to explain and talk about the aggressively child-free movement, of which I'm a part. It was a very good opportunity to really get the time to talk about and explain what we are in the ACS movement and what we stand for. And I've been asked to summarize and talk a little bit about where I see us standing today in the child-free movement in general and the aggressive child-free movement particularly. I think that it's sort of the same, the conflict lines are the same between the child-free movement and society in general. And within the child-free community, we're still at the same point really between aggressive child-free and the mainstream child-free, or the more soft or pleasing part of it. And I think that generally we need to talk and continue to talk about child-free for people who are not in the child-free movement at all. Maybe it's starting to go in the right direction, meaning that child-freeness is being talked about a bit more, and I see some examples of child-free people being taken more seriously, but we have a long way to go as a society, and obviously it's very different in different countries, different parts of the world. And since last year I've been focusing continue to focus on the international child-free, aggressively child-free movement. And I've also been trying to focus more on the movement here in Sweden, where I live. The child-free movement is sort of just beginning in Sweden. It's not talked about much. People don't really know what child-free is, what the difference between child-free and childless is, and so on. So we really have to start from scratch. It's starting to pick up a bit more momentum here, but it's still very, very soft and very, very parent-pleasing. As an example, you can't have one article or TV or radio program talking about being child-free, choosing not to have children and live that kind of life without a pleaser butting in, or even actual parents. They always have to come to the comment section and say, oh, that's very good for you, but I wouldn't trade my children for anything in the world, and blah, blah, and so on. So we can't really have any spaces where we can talk about child-free without being interrupted by people with another agenda. During the last year or so, I have actually met a couple of child-free people here in Sweden in real life, but they're definitely not aggressively child-free. It's like people seem to think that they have to say, oh, I've decided not to have children of my own, but I love children. I just don't want any of my own, or I just want to be the fun auntie, or fun uncle. Some of them might mean it, but I think that a lot of people don't even reflect upon whether they mean that or not. They think they have to say that they love children. They just don't want any of their own. And that's one of my main points of focus, trying to make people understand that it should be and it is okay to say, I don't want any. Full stop. You don't have to say you love them. You don't have to say you hate them. You don't have to say anything. It's like, I don't want to play ice hockey. End of story. Why should I have to sugarcoat not wanting children? So that's one thing I've been trying to raise more opinion of this on the child-free topic here in Sweden. And as a society, as a community, I mean, in the whole world, we have to not back down. We have to stand our ground to the rest of the parent-child society, and we don't have to seek their acceptance. This is just a very short outline about my thoughts today and what I've been doing. You can find me in Childfree and Loving It on Facebook, and in Sweden I have a group called 100% Barnfri. That translates as 100% child-free. Okay, thank you for your time. Have a great day and see you around.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Angela L. Harris, the visionary and founder of No Bibs Burps Bottles, where we empower, celebrate, and highlight African American Black child-free women to live their best child-free life. I'm so excited to say that because we've been going strong for a few years now. I'm so excited to be before you, partnering with Childfree Media and celebrating International Child-Free Day. Now, when I've done this in the past, I've talked about a few things: child-free and single, child-free and dating, child-free and taking care of aging parents, child-free friendships, child-free content creation. But today, I want to talk about you in a good way. As we celebrate International Child-Free Day, we know that there are going to be a lot of people who are not going to understand why we step out bold with all this confidence saying, I intentionally made a choice for me. I want you to be bold. I want you to be unapologetic. I want you to be sincere. I want you to be confident as you celebrate International Child-Free Day on August 1st. But guess what? It doesn't stop there. I need you to celebrate you on August 2nd and 3rd and September and November and all year round. We have made strides. However, we still have so much more to go. People are still asking, why would you make such a decision not to have children? They're such a blessing. People still don't understand that we can actually be happy and live fulfilled lives without children. We are family, whether that's made up of just me, your pet, your godchildren, your immediate family, your surrogate family. We are enough. And so each year, as we continue to talk about the choice that we made to be child-free, we actually get one more person who stops and listens and attempts to understand, what is this child-free lifestyle all about? When we remain silent, when we stifle ourselves and say, oh, it's not important, I just don't have kids, it's one person who may not understand that they actually have a choice. But we need to make sure that we amplify our voices, that we let people know that they actually do have a choice, and that we celebrate motherhood, but we also celebrate being child-free. We are living a lifestyle that's full of joy and peace and happiness, while also recognizing that, you know what, we have our good days and we have our bad days. We're not going to be covered all over every news station on August 1st. When you just talk about being child-free unapologetically, someone is going to listen, and someone is going to say, if they can do it, I can do it. If she can live this way, I can live this way. So I want you to celebrate you always, because if you don't, who will? I want to thank Childfree Media for allowing me a little bit of time to talk about what it means for me to be child-free. It's so liberating to be in this space called No Bibs, Burps, Bottles, to be in this child-free community, to fellowship with people online and in real life talking about our child-free journey. Hit me up. NoBibsBurpsBottles.com, where we have online events. I do one-on-one coaching. As we celebrate us being child-free individuals, make sure that you continue to walk in your purpose, walk in your ministry, walk in your passion, and letting others know that you are not holding your head low, you are not an old maid, and that you intentionally made a choice that was best for you. Happy International Child-Free Day from No Bibs, Burps, Bottles. Peace.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. I'm Kazane from Japan, and I'm gonna talk about my experiences as a child-free woman living in Japan. So, as of the concept of child-free, I feel like the government is trying to make us invisible intentionally, like people like us shouldn't exist in this country. And the social norms that once you get married, children is supposed to come next is very strong. So I was married before, but once I got married, people automatically started to assume that I was gonna get pregnant, I was gonna have a child, and I found it very weird because I have never expressed such desire in my life. Not a single time, but people still automatically assumed that's what's waiting for me without even asking me, and I thought it was very weird, and I thought it needs to be changed. I'm gonna talk about the stereotypes I find on the internet about child-free women. The stereotypes I often find when it comes to child-free women can be cat ladies, like good aunties, or like career-driven, and that can be true sometimes. But just because you do not have children doesn't mean you have to take care of other people's children. And just because you are not interested in having children doesn't mean you have to be career driven. And just because you do not take care of your own children doesn't mean you have to take care of animals. But the society and even child-free women themselves subconsciously looking for like justifications or valid reasons for women to be child-free. We do not need, or we should not need, any explanation or justification on how we turned out this way or why we turned out this way, things like that. We are fine just the way we are. We don't have to take care of anyone or anything to be accepted as women. That's how I feel. In Japan, you need to get married, have several children, and get spousal permission to be even considered for permanent sterilization. So I had my fallopian tubes removed in the States. I didn't choose to be born in Japan, but from a very young age, I knew that I needed to remove my fertility to be who I am. The surgical sterilization that I had, that was the best thing that happened to me and happiest day of my life. And after the surgery, I started feel that I have become who I am. Like I'm finally who I am. That kind of feeling is so liberating. And I'm very comfortable with my body now because I feel like I was able to be who I am. I feel like the government is constantly telling us how happiness should look like, what kind of happiness is right and what kind of happiness is wrong. So I think it is important for me to speak about my experiences. There is one thing I decided when I had the surgery, which is not to hide what I did to my body. There's nothing to be ashamed of, and I'm proud of myself. So when someone asks me if I want to have a child, I would say that's not what I want in my life. And if they assume that I was going to change my mind or somehow it may happen in my future, I'd tell them I chose to be sterilized and I'm happy with my decision. And people got surprised, not because they are bad people, but because these choices had been taken away by the government in my country for a very long time. So a lot of people are not aware of these choices, or a lot of people do not know what sterilization is, or a lot of people do not know what elective surgery means. So I think it is important for me to talk about my experiences to help them realize it is okay to be different. And I hope me talking about my experiences would help people to feel like it is okay to be who they want to be. And I think it's very important for us to gather and talk like this, as it may help people who may feel the same way in silence. I hope we can empower people and each other through this event. Thank you.
I'm Jen, and I'm excited to be part of the Childfree Convention again this year. I was on the 2021 Married and Child-Free panel and the 2022 Child-Free Off the Grid panel. During that time, my husband and I were traveling full time in Mexico, the US, and Japan while working remotely. Happy to report that I am still child-free and loving it, and still married too. We are back in Portland, Oregon with a home base, but looking forward to traveling again soon. We've been spending a bit more time with our nieces and nephews and friends' kids. We try to introduce them to new adventures and support their dreams as much as possible. In my life, I feel like more people than ever, including parents, are saying, you made the right choice to not have kids. And I agree. A really heartwarming thing is that one of our nieces, who just turned 27, is also choosing to be child-free, and I'm thrilled that she's been able to find a doctor to make that choice surgically permanent for her. On the other hand, it's been terrifying to hear elected officials disparaging people without children and stating that our votes should count for less somehow, especially as women's rights and access to health care, including birth control and abortion, are being threatened. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that I have zero regrets when it comes to being child free. One of the ways that my husband and I invest in the future is by supporting the people who are doing their best to shape the next generation, teachers. I work for a national nonprofit called adoptaclassroom.org, and we provide funding for classroom supplies because teachers spend, on average, $895 of their own money each year on things their students need to learn. You can donate to a teacher or learn more at adoptaclassroom.org.
Hey everyone, it's Ray. It's so nice to see you all again. I was on the LGBTQ and Fed sitting panel back in 2022. I also lived in New York, but now I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I just kind of woke up one day and was like, I need a change of pace. I want a new job, new environment, and with the help of my brother, packed up a U-Haul and drove 10 hours. And so that's definitely one of the perks of being child free is that I can kind of just make these sporadic life decisions. I've also picked up bartending, and so I will work music festivals, and that's amazing, but they're long, long hours and they can be far. I'm also going to be going skydiving at the end of the month for my birthday, which is exciting, very dangerous, but exciting. And these are some of the decisions that I would have to kind of think through a little more if I had tiny humans. And so just a few of the reasons why I'm super happy to be child free. And when I think about who's going to take care of me when I get older, my initial question is, when's the last time you checked on your parents? But my answer is my community, right? When I moved out here, I had a job and a dream. I did not really have a game plan. I did not know where I was going to stay. And luckily, I'm a millennial and been on the internet since it existed and have friends all over the place. I was able to find somewhere to stay and get on my feet. And so I'm building intentional community, right? As a queer person, as a polyamorous person, I'm here for the community. As a person, we need that human connection. We need community to thrive and sustain. And so that's what I'm working towards. I'm working towards being surrounded by people I love, romantic, platonic, familial, you name it. That's what I'm working towards, pouring into people and showing up for them just as they do for me. And so that's how I'm going to be taken care of by me and by the community that chooses to be here with me, that chooses to show up for me, and also money. I work really hard, and my career has always been dedicated to children and family. I have been a tutor. I have done Big Brother, Big Sister. I've been a camp counselor. I have taught anti-racism workshops, anti-bullying workshops. I did foster care caseworking. I taught parenting classes, and now I work in the juvenile justice field. Everything that I do my entire career, I have dedicated to children and family. And that is just how important community is to me and showing up for my community. And so when I hear folks say that child-free people do not contribute anything because we're not birthing tiny humans, it can be disheartening because this is something I'm passionate about. My change work is something that means so much to me. And it doesn't just stop at 5 o'clock like it can for some folks. I am there no matter the weather, no matter the time. My phone is on, my own money, my own resources. I show up. I fight every day and prove that I am a safe, reliable adult for my clients, for the people in my life. And I mean that sincerely. And I want other people to understand that. And I always love to push back on it and be like, when's the last time you did anything that wasn't out of obligation? Last time you volunteered, donated anything? Last time you showed up for a kid that wasn't directly related to you? Right? I go out of my way to support my community. I don't have to birth the community to be a part of it and support it and show up for it. And I just really, really want people to take that into consideration and really, really understand that. And the decisions that I make are not made lightly. And when I think about decisions, I think about how parenting is a choice, and it's a choice that you shouldn't make all willy-nilly, right? And so one of the things being queer affords me is that I just can't happen upon pregnancy like some of my non-queer folks can. They are conscious decisions. They are conversations with partners and doctors and what this is going to look like for everyone involved. And so understanding the power in that and understanding how all the lives that I've touched and the ways in which they've needed support, and in everything that is included in a village and everything that's included in raising a tiny human, which extends beyond finances and additional co-parents. I understand that that's not for me, and I understand that I don't have that. And so being aware of that and acknowledging that and standing in that truth is really, really powerful. And I live this life to the fullest because I'm child free. I'm able to make some of the decisions that I make, like picking up and moving, because I'm child free. And being child free has given me so much joy and so much happiness, and the comforts that I have that I want to maintain even from now until I'm a little old lady, right? All stem from being child free. And that's all that matters. And so when I look back at being on the fence sitter panel, if I'm being honest, I was never truly a fence sitter. I was in my late 20s and 30 was creeping up, and I was like, okay, we're going to be 30 and we know what 30 means as a woman. And I kind of let the whispers of the fence in society get to me a bit. But I've known since I was 12 that I don't want kids, and I'm standing on that. Auntie tired. Auntie is living her life. And so I've never truly been a fence sitter. I just allowed some of the social pressures to get to me just a little bit. And that's okay, because it's good to check in with you, and it's good to see where you're at and making sure that decisions haven't changed. And so I'm here. If anybody wants to talk, if anybody wants to catch up with me, you can follow me on Instagram at Kai Ray. And until the next time.
Childfree Trust is launching in fall 2025 to answer the question, who's going to take care of you when you're older? Childfree Trust helps you to get your estate paperwork in place and enables you to appoint a trust company to serve as your medical POA, financial POA, executor, and trustee. Now your answer to the question becomes, my plan will take care of me with Childfree Trust's help. More info at childfreetrust.com.
Productively Child-Free is a consultant for entrepreneurs and creators who want more than just business as usual. We help align flexibility and accountability with your version of success. Ditch burnout to build the business and child-free life that you want. Book your coffee chat with Productively Child-Free today.
Karoadtrips is a Belgian-based child-free travel blog with real reviews and a love of food and dark tourism. Must follow Child-Free Travel Blog.
Wanna know if the trip is worth it? Check out Karoadtrips. 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 Trips worth taking. Karoadtrips.
Looking for a meaningful gift for a loved one or yourself? A custom pet portrait is a heartfelt way to honor the bond with a furry friend. No AI here. Each piece is hand-painted to capture your pet's unique personality. Perfect as a tribute or a special surprise. Find Pet Portraits by AJ on Facebook to get started.
August 1st is International Child-Free Day. Whether it's having more time for your passions, building deep relationships, making last-minute travel plans, or just enjoying the peace and quiet, being child-free means designing a life that fits you. It's not about what you're missing, it's about what you're making room for. We claim one day, but we celebrate every day. Visit internationalchildfreeday.com for more.
Hello, my name is Krista Lukas, and I'm going to be reading my poem Baby Shower, which is in this book, Fans of My Unconscious. Bathroom humor is lost on me, watching a blindfolded pregnant woman remove a peanut butter smeared diaper from a doll and wipe its plastic rear. We all laugh while I lament this harbinger of conversations to come. Watching soon-to-be mother open presents, I concur that tiny jeans, socks, and hooded towels are so cute. I just don't want to snatch fuzzy ducky clothespins off the blouses of guests who say that word. She who gets the most wins a prize, as does she who can recall and list all the items in the Safety First Froggy Tub. Moms can name the specialized pumps, slings, and pads, while the best I can do is rattle and pacifier. In exchange for my gift, the children's treasury of verses, I get a friend who will soon become two people, both as yet unknown. And I am given a night sky cutout to write my wish upon a star for baby. May he love to read. Placed in the scrapbook among hopes for a long life, friends, and good fortune. My wish for mother is not asked for and must remain unsaid, that she not disappear from me, that she not be swallowed up by the child. Thank you, and keep an eye out in coming years for my next collection, the working title of which is An Overturned Bowl of Sky.
Hello everyone, my name is Antonio Myers. I was a part of the Childfree Convention back in the month of July in the year 2023. What I gained from being at the convention is that some people are meant to not have children for valid reasons, and that it's okay for some people to just raise their inner child because that's all the parenting that some people are best at doing. I also want to mention that I am going to be podcasting. I have decided to call my podcast Tonio Time Weekly. I'm currently updating the website. I just got on Spotify. I actually started the podcast sometime late last week. And what do I plan to podcast about? The neurodivergent experience in this global society that we all inhabit. I want to talk about easy subjects as well as sensitive subjects, but I want to talk about both kinds of subjects with well-roundedness, well-balance, well-adjustment, and well-unification. I'm no shock jock, but I'm also not the type of person to shy away from the discussions that are important to have and to hold with one another. Lastly, I just want to say and need to say that to be child-free does not mean that we don't value children. We do. Many of us, including myself, are uncles. Some of us are aunts. Some of us are caregivers, professional as well as those who caregive for free when it comes to their loved ones. Some of us have to parent our parents because of their sensitized situations in life. And what do I think about the Childfree Convention? I think that it was awesome to meet other people who get along well, even with those who choose to have biological children. No animosity, no rift between the child-free and those who feel that biological child having or any other forms of parenting is right for them. It doesn't have to be that way. We just have to honor that there's more than one way to be wholesome, holistic, and healthy. There's more than one way to nurture. There's more than one way to nourish. And how I think the Childfree Convention can have more success is to invite more autistic people like myself, because the neurodivergent child-free experience can be enriching even to child-free people who have no diagnosis how their brains and how their bodies operate. That's not me calling out the Child-Free Convention, that's me uplifting the Child-Free Convention, because I believe the Child-Free Convention is awesome, and adding the neurodiverse experience will keep the awesomeness more afloat than it already is. Thank you very much.
I'm Molly Peacock, the author of Paradise Piece by Piece and The Widow's Crayon Box. One thing I heard when I made the choice not to have children some 40 years ago was, "You'll regret this when you're older." I'm 78. Do I regret it? No, not even for a minute. I come from a working class family. My dad was a violent alcoholic. My mom struggled to make a living and hoped that I would live her dream of going to college. I did just that. I was recognized for my writing talent at the State University of New York at Binghamton, and I went on to become a well-known poet. I had a beautiful long marriage, and I helped my husband die. I would say this to you. There are so many ways to love, not only mother love. I was able to write 8 books of poetry and 2 biographies of forgotten women artists whom I was able to help rescue. I co-founded Poetry in Motion on New York City's subways and buses, and for more than a quarter century, millions and millions of people have been reading those poems as they go underground. In Canada, I founded the vital Best Canadian Poetry series that is published every year. I'm a dual citizen of Canada and the United States, and I leave you with dual thoughts. I have no regrets, and there are so many ways to love.
Hi everyone, I'm Jeet Sharma. I was a part of the Child-Free Guys panel in 2023, and I'm really happy to be contributing again to this year's Child-Free Convention. Big thanks to Cody for carrying the torch forward and making sure our voices keep evolving. Last year's panel was a breakthrough moment. We spoke openly about masculinity, freedom, and breaking stereotypes around men who choose a child-free lifestyle. But one thing that's become even more clear to me since then is that we need more emotional and psychological support in this space. I've been speaking with a lot of people, a lot of couples, and people who are planning to go for child-free lifestyle. I've been counseling a lot of couples, and I realized that choosing to be child-free can be deeply freeing, but at the same time, it can be confusing, isolating, and emotionally taxing, especially when you are navigating disagreement in a relationship or internalized pressure from society. That's why psychological counseling plays such a vital role in child-free moment. It's not just about making a decision, it's about navigating that decision with clarity, self-awareness, and emotional grounding. What I also realize is, people have a lot of preconceived notions and filters about child-free lifestyle and, about child-free people in general as well. So that is the reason, why psychological counseling plays such a vital role in this child-free movement. It's not just about making a decision, like I said, it's about navigating that decision with more clarity and self-awareness, most importantly. So counseling helps individuals and couples untangle societal and personal conditioning from desire and liberating themselves from preconceived notions and leading them towards a real empowerment. So I'll tell you what, being child-free has always allowed me to shape a life that's deeply aligned with my values, my visions, and most importantly, freedom. I've experienced more peace, creativity, and depth in my relationships. It actually increases your bond with your partner, and it also, reduces stress in a lot of ways. So what I really wish people understand is that child freedom is not a rejection. It's an affirmation. It's more about love rather than, rejecting something. It's more about affirmation of freedom. It's a conscious choice of living fully without the default script. The stereotype that child-free people are selfish or incomplete is both lazy and harmful, actually. It ignores the emotional intelligence. In our last video conference, I had briefly shared my vision and my idea that the child-free movement needs more structured counseling support, and I've taken that forward. At Darklight Energetics, I've started offering one-on-one counseling sessions for couples who are exploring the child-free lifestyle. I'm a modern applied psychologist, and that I do the counseling for the child-free lifestyle. I work specifically with couples who are both inclined toward being child-free but are struggling with internal conflict, hesitation, or emotional blockages caused by cultural pressure or fear of judgment. My role is to help them align, gain clarity, and navigate this life choice without guilt, confusion, or emotional overwhelm. Through these sessions, I have seen couples go from hesitation to harmony. And the most fulfilling part is seeing people reclaim ownership of their choices and live more consciously, more peacefully. I'm honored to be a part of this evolving conversation. The child-free path is not just a personal choice, like I said, it's a cultural shift, and every voice matters. Thanks again to Cody and the Childfree Convention team. Let's keep growing mentally, emotionally, and as a community. Thank you. Namaste.
Hi, I'm Teresa Schechter, and I am the director of the documentary My So-Called Selfish Life, which has now been seen in over 40 countries on television, online, in living rooms, classrooms, community spaces, boardrooms. Thank you so much for inviting this film into your worlds. I'm a child-free woman, and I've been making films for over 20 years. The last 10 of those years, I've been working on issues around child-free lives, reproductive justice, and pronatalism. I have known all my life that I didn't want children, even before I had the words to express exactly what that feeling was. For me, it's never been about lifestyle, but something much more profound. It's been about the ability to live an authentic life. The life I feel is best for me. There's loads of great stuff on our website, myselfishlife.com. There's comics, there's articles, there's panels, there's audience stories, as well as links to rent or buy the film. Happy International Child Free Day, everyone. It's been a real honor and pleasure to be part of this community with you all. Thanks.
Hello everyone, my name is Amanda, and in 2023 I spoke on the panel Child Free with Disabilities. I was born with a birth defect that caused pretty significant nerve damage, and I've lived my entire life with a disability that involves both visible and invisible aspects. I'm also child free. The biggest takeaway that I had from our panel discussion is actually two things, and they're things that I already knew, but it was really great to see these things emphasized and discussed more deeply. The first is that there is diversity within the experience of disability. There's lots of different ways that people can be disabled. Sometimes it's visible, sometimes it's invisible, sometimes it's a combination of both. Also, some people like me were born disabled. However, people become disabled later in life. Sometimes you develop a disability over a span of time, or sometimes it's very acute. Something happens to you very suddenly and you become disabled. Either way, there's lots of different experiences and ways to be disabled, and even though we've come a long way in including a lot more in the discussion and in the definition of disability, I still think that there is more conversation, education to be had around that subject. The second is that even though we are disabled, simply being disabled was not the one sole only reason we chose to be child-free. A lot of us knew from a very long time that we didn't want to have children, and our experiences being disabled, while yes, probably did contribute somewhat to our decision, there were lots of other things that contributed to our decision. So disability is not the sole singular reason that a disabled person makes the decisions that they do in their lives. Certainly it impacts the decisions that we make, but it is not the only reason that we choose not to have children, and especially because there are many disabled people who do have children, and one of the biggest stereotypes is actually that disabled people cannot have children. So I think it's really important to sort of emphasize that the disability is not the reason people are child-free. People who have disabilities do choose to become parents or to have children, and others don't, whether or not they are capable or can have children. And when you put these two things together, I think that brings into the forefront one of the most important things in this conversation going forward, and that is the breaking of stereotypes. And not only is the breaking of stereotypes very important, specifically in the child-free community and being child-free with disabilities, but honestly, in our overall socio-political climate, especially here where I am in the United States. So in my day job, I work in public service, but in my personal life, I'm an amateur historian and researcher. And I research disability history. So I really love learning people's stories. And one of the most interesting things that I've learned about getting to know people and learning their stories, both in the present and in the past, is that people are very complex and complicated and fascinating. I have a lot of weird interests, specifically when it comes to history. I research things that are a little controversial. Death, gender, sexuality. Definitely things that people, if they don't know a lot about it or they are already mad about it, come and attack me for even talking about these subjects. And sometimes they like to paint me as an evil person, just sort of a villain in a leather jacket cackling in the corner about why I would even have the audacity to talk about these things. And it's very similar with being child-free. People don't really think about all of the many different reasons or experiences or things that have happened to me in my life that would lead me to make this decision. They sort of simply paint a cartoonish, villainous motivation onto me rather than putting together the entire story. And truly, I owe no one an explanation for why I do the things that I do or why I'm interested in the things that I'm interested in, but sometimes I would like to tell people, if you're really angry with me, then you should really be angry at the child me. I had kidney failure when I was 9, and I carried my kidneys around in bags until things were fixed with a bunch of surgeries. I also had dead body bone chips fused to my spine when I was 12. I had to grow up a lot faster than other kids my age, and I was kind of confronted with a lot of really heavy, deep topics that made me very interested in spirituality and death and the stuff that we do with our bodies here on this earth in the time that we're given from a pretty young age. And to me, that's a more interesting story. I mean, wouldn't you want to hear the story about dead body bone chips or carrying my kidneys around in bags rather than just saying I must be a selfish, shallow person for not wanting to have children? I don't know. Either way, most people have very interesting lives, very interesting stories if you just take the time to be curious and maybe ask about it. And if they are willing to share, of course, like I said, nobody, disabled or otherwise, owes anybody else an explanation or their life story by any means. But I think we could all benefit from being a little bit more curious about the way people's lives unfold and the decisions that they make because of the experiences that they've had. And developing this tool, I think, is only going to be even more important going forward in our current socio-political environment. So if you can develop that, and if I can develop that, I think we'll all be in a better place. Or at the very least, it could lead us to having some more respectful and interesting conversations, which is what I hope the Childfree Convention does, and why I was really happy to make a video for this year. If you want to find out more about my research, I haven't posted a lot, but I plan to post more in the next few months going forward on my website, www.needleandbow.com, where I talk about disability history and some of my experiences with disability and chronic illness. Thank you so much for having me, and have an excellent day or night.
Hi there, my name is Ebi Weyime. I run a page called The Childfree African. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube under the same name. I started the Childfree page around 2020. That's when I tied my tubes and I became officially childfree, and I've been loving it ever since. This will be the third time that I'm participating in the Childfree Convention, and the takeaway that I've had over the years is that the conversation is slowly evolving, and especially through the African context. More and more Africans are starting to see the sense in being child-free. They may not be child-free themselves, but they're slowly accepting that there are women and men who just intentionally choose not to have kids. When I first came out as a child-free woman, I got a lot of backlash. I still get it up to now, but the conversation has definitely changed from what it was 5 years ago. As much as we've seen growth and changes when it comes to accepting people who are child-free or accepting the child-free community or movement, there's still people who are just still hell-bent on thinking that people who are child-free are enemies of parents, or we are enemies of people who have kids or who want kids. But that is not the reality. People who are child-free just want to live their life. And when we create a community for child-free people, it is seen as an attack on parents or on people who want kids, which is not the case, because the reverse is also true, in the sense that parents, mothers especially, they have special pages, special communities just for mothers, a support group for mothers. So I don't see what the problem is when child-free people create their own community, a support group, because let's face it, child-free people are very few, and it's very hard to find a community of people who understand why you're child-free. So when we create a community of child-free people, it is, to some people, it is seen as an attack on people or on mothers or fathers, which is not the case. I still have not found a way to go around it or to explain it to people. So it gets to a point I'm just like, well, believe what you want. One of the best things that has happened ever since I came out as a child-free woman and I created this community of child-free African men and women, one of my greatest fulfillments is just creating that community and meeting like-minded people. But what's even greater or more exciting for me is people who thought they were alone. They thought they were crazy for not wanting kids, because in an African setup, you are trained to be a mother. From the time you're a child, you're trained how to take care of your husband. They just assume that you will want to be a wife, and they assume that you will want to be a mother. So you are already subconsciously, or sometimes even directly, trained for that. So when you get older and you realize, or you start having these feelings of, well, I don't want to be a wife, or I don't want to be a mother, then you start feeling isolated because everybody around you wants that. So if you are the one person who does not want that, then where do you find a community? So creating this community of child-free men and women has been very fulfilling, in the sense that I meet women who say, thank you so much because I thought I was alone. Thank you so much because I didn't even know child-free was a thing. I had this feeling that I don't want to have kids, but I didn't know that there was a name for it. I didn't know there's a community of it. I didn't even know that there are other people who think the same. I used to think I was crazy. So bringing together like-minded people and forming a community and a support group has really been fulfilling. And if I was to die today, I'd really be happy that I did that. One child-free stereotype that I get all the time is people think that child-free people are rich, or child-free people have money and they have all the time in the world, which is maybe true for some people, but for a large group of people that are found, many people are child-free because they don't have money. They're child-free because they don't have time. So assuming that a child-free person is rich, or they just have all the time in the world, could not be further from the truth. I think a child-free person has really sat down with themselves and they've calculated the amount of money that they have, they've calculated the amount of time that they have, and they've realized they cannot accommodate a child. So assuming that a child-free person is rich or they have all the time, I think is one of the biggest stereotypes. But hey, if you want to believe that, sure. I also think that with time, the child-free label will evolve into something else, or it will change. It was just last week someone commented on one of my videos on Instagram, and she said that she prefers calling herself a free-range woman or a free-range adult. Like, she wants to completely dissociate herself from anything to do with children. So she's calling herself a free-range adult instead of child-free. And I thought it was funny, but yeah, I like it as well. For someone who does not have kids, one of the main questions that you get, even from my own parents, is then what kind of legacy will you have? Because I feel like for generations, for centuries, legacy has been associated with children. The children that you leave behind are your legacy. Well, to some extent that might be true, but in 2025, I don't think children have anything to do with legacy. The question that I keep asking people is, well, do you know Nelson Mandela? Do you know Michael Jackson? Do you know Steve Jobs? Do you know Lucky Dube? So all these people, you know them, right? But do you know their children? Do you know where the children are? Do you know their names? Do you know what they do for work? And it's the same thing, and it's the same thing with legacy. Legacy is what the impact that you have created yourself, an impact that will outlive generations. Your children are not the legacy. Yes, they might carry that legacy, but they're not the legacy. It is what you do with your time on earth that is your legacy. There's so many people that have passed on that had 10 children, 5 children, 2 children, but no one ever thinks of them. Well, do they have a legacy? Do they? Just the simple fact that they gave life, that they brought another human being to this world, is that a legacy by itself? How do I envision aging without children? Gracefully. Just me and my husband. I've been married for 2 years now, and that's the other thing as well. People think that a child-free woman does not want to get married, but those are two very different things. The fact that I've said that I am child-free does not mean that I don't want to get married. Also, people really confuse being child-free with being a lesbian, which, again, those are two different things. So I am married. I am happily married, been married for 2 years now. We both do not want children. He has kids from his previous marriage, but by the time we got married, he did not want any more children, and I also do not have any of my own. So we plan on just living a happy life without children. Really exciting. As I had mentioned earlier, you can find me on my social media handles. That is on Instagram at The Childfree African, on TikTok at The Childfree African, and on YouTube at The Childfree African. And I really hope that we'll create a bigger community of more child-free men and women, and may we grow and prosper. That is the prayer that I have for each and every one of you.
Hi, I'm Tanya Williams, author of Amazon best-selling book A Child-Free Happily Ever After, founder of Childfree Magazine and Childfree TV, and the Undecided app. I'm child-free by choice, and I believe everyone should make their own rules and choices in life. As much as I don't want children personally, I respect that other people want them. So if we want respect and acceptance, then we should also provide the same, despite the judgment, the stigma that is often around our choice. I know that my life would be vastly different with children, and I am so grateful that I made the choice to not have kids. It's allowed me to travel the world, start businesses, have some really nice stuff, have freedom and flexibility to do work on projects and with charity, and explore how I want the next 10, 30, years look like. One of the things I'm proud of is that I stand up for what I believe. And I had a recent incident that helped me decide something that I wanted to address in this video to you. I was recently told to stay in my lane. And surprisingly, it was by another child-free person, because she didn't appreciate a post I shared and said that because I was an American, I should not have an opinion on what happens there. So let me just say this and be very clear on it. It does not matter where in the world someone is located when it comes to women's rights and issues that are facing women regarding reproduction, being able to have a choice and having choices. These issues are impacting women all across the globe, and what we need, instead of being told to stay in our lane, is women supporting other women, regardless of location, political views, race or age. And I will have an opinion about the leaders that are taking away those rights and the voices of women. We all should stand up and be vocal about these uneducated, middle-aged white men who don't think women should have a say in their own bodies. Women, particularly child-free women, should allow others to share their views about the issues that are impacting a woman's right to choose. When these rights are taken away, they impact and filter across the world to other countries, as we're currently seeing. So it's very much our right to have our say and to not stay in our lane. I love that there are so many child-free voices around the globe and that women are starting to be more vocal about their choice. But please also remember that we are different within our own community, and we have different beliefs and values and views on lots of topics as child-free people. But we should be supporting the rights of women across the world to have the same choice that we have. Imagine your life without having the choice that you've had now. It would be very different, right? And if we want support from outside the community, we also need to stand up to bullies and people that try and tell us what we can and cannot say or do, both within the child-free community and outside of it. I also want to address a few things regarding conversations that you might be having with women who are mothers. Please remind them of these things. They had a choice on what they wanted to do with their life, and so should everyone else. Me not having children doesn't impact you in any way. Bullying or pressuring your child to have a grandchild for you is selfish, and you should be ashamed for making your daughter feel less than or unaccepted if they don't. And as child-free women, we don't need your approval, but we would appreciate your acceptance, free of criticism and judgment. And this conversation should not be an us versus them, so stop making us feel like the enemy when we're perfectly happy living these amazing, fulfilled lives on our own terms. Don't criticize others because you aren't happy with your life choices. What we need moving forward is for broader conversation in society, for women to be vocal and be seen, for less judgment and criticism, and which comes about from education, visibility, and conversations. Before I finish, I'd love to invite anyone who is watching this that is still unsure if they want to have children to download my app called Undecided. It will help you decide if kids are an if, not a when, and allow you to do so without pressure and without regret. You'll find it on Apple and Android, so take a look and share it with your friends, please. I hope you took something positive away from this message and use it to support your life choices and to remind others to use their voice. You are amazing, just as you are. So please never feel less than by anyone because you don't have children. I plan to spend the rest of my days writing, advocating, supporting women to be strong, to have their voice, make their own rules, and to never let anyone dull their sparkle.
Hey, I'm Jay Zigmont, founder of Childfree Wealth, and I got to be a part of a whole bunch of sessions in the Childfree Convention over the years. And this year has been a little crazy for me. This year, I launched my new book, The Childfree Guide to Life and Money. That was great, had some great responses there. But I've really been working on this topic that we talked about in the Childfree estate planning session, which is who makes the decisions for you when you can't. And it's been a challenge. Let's just say that. I've been meeting with banking regulators and companies and structures and trying to figure out a solution. And finally, we're going to be launching one later this year we call Childfree Legacy. And what we're going to do is we're going to help people create what we call a Childfree Trust. And what that means is you'll be able to appoint a trust company to serve as your medical power attorney, financial power attorney, executor, or trustee, and have them serve as your next of kin. And that may sound like a small thing, but it's a huge initiative. We hired a team of legal interns for an entire summer to work on this and look at each of the 50 states and how do they do things. And boy, it's a bit of a regulatory nightmare. But we figured it out. We're going to be launching beginning of 2026. You can join our waitlist at childfreelegacy.com. But what you can do then is actually get your estate paperwork done so you have somebody appointed to make decisions for you. We talked about it during the convention, but the problem is if you don't appoint somebody to serve in those roles, the government makes decisions for you. And if anyone else is living in 2025, we know what the politics and the government and all that's been. And I don't even care what your politics are or what your personal beliefs are. But the one thing I can guarantee is nobody wants the government making decisions for you. So you have to get your paperwork done. That means your medical power attorney, your financial power attorney, will, trust, and have it on file so that somebody can be there for you. If you have a friend or family that can do it for you, great. That's awesome. If not, that's why we're launching Childfree Legacy, so we can do that for you. But I just can't express how important it is, specifically for soloists. Single with no kids and your spouse you don't have a spouse to do this for you? Well, then you need somebody to do that. And that paperwork is so important.